Hi there, my name is Alex and I completed the Ceredigion County Council Coast and Countryside work placement over the past 7 months from the beginning of September until the end of March. This placement was majority completed with the conservation team, and in the conservation team there are 5 key members. However, before proceeding with more information about the conservation, it's useful if I provide a little bit of context about myself and why I even picked Ceredigion County Council. Um, uh, Personally, I have sort of been determined to study law since 2016. I marked this year in particular because that was the year I was able to get a week's work experience at a local solicitor's firm. Although that is quite detached, a law degree and work experience at a solicitor's firm is quite detached with the council and public sector work. So the reason I even took the law degree and the placement back in 2016 was really because I have an appreciation for authorities. So the fact that the councils can stop you from building something in on your land, or can give you a ticket if you park your car somewhere, or any of these sorts of things, it was really a key factor of interest for me. And so throughout my degree, I've learned that it's not so much the courts that hold this power to shape what is right and what is wrong, or who's at fault or who's not at fault. It's very much more the government who decide these sorts of things, and it's through governmental actions and actors that these sort of societal um, rights and wrongs are very much decided. And it's because of the public law module. I mean, the environmental law module was really key for Caretaking Coast and Countryside placement because there was plenty of work. In particular, there was one essay I completed which was on planning permissions, and so that was very interesting. But I also must mention my dad. Throughout COVID, we all worked from home and completed our degrees from home or whatnot. And my dad, working for Cornwall County Council as a program development manager, he was seeing him in his business meeting, not business meetings, council meetings, week in, week out, was very interesting. So carrying on with that, it's useful now if I explain who the council are, what is Ceredigion County Council, and how do they operate. Well, the council operates very similar to many other councils in the UK on a 5-year election cycle, which is actually quite relevant at the moment because it's happening very soon. So there are 4,000 staff members that cover this population of 73,000 people in Ceredigion, although that is quite an old figure. Hopefully, with the new census data being released soon, it'll be updated, that 73,000 figure. So the 4,000 figure sounds quite large, but when you compare it to Cardiff, it was 3 times the amount of staff members. It can put that figure into perspective. So for these 4,000 staff members to cover the 11 major areas is quite a feat. But these 11 areas are these here. I worked with the environmental health and services section, and as is stated out there, there are budget cuts, and this is from the Welsh Government website. There are budget cuts, out-of-date finance systems, and continued austerity means that there's understaffing and underfunding in all aspects of government. But I do not think that difficulties are only being felt within the government. Plenty of businesses and people are facing, especially with the cost of living crisis at the moment, is definite strain being felt by everyone. And so, proceeding with this, it's useful if I explain who the team are. So, there is the main 3 that I would like to talk about is the head of the team, the CLMP coordinator, and the planning ecologist. So, I mostly worked alongside the coordinator, but as mentioned, I completed the environmental law module and my essay. And because of that, I felt like maybe I could be of help to the planning ecologist, especially having completed some academic work on her position. But however, following my first meeting with her, it's clear that I was probably way in over my head, and I overestimated my abilities. And so she was a very busy person, as mentioned, because of the budget cuts and such. And so following a meeting with her, I spent a significant time writing out an email to her, because with emails, I've learned that you've got to be particularly careful with tone and attitude and how things can come across. So I easily spent about 2.5 hours on an email to the planning ecologist. It was about 600 words long, and I then never received a reply. Now that was quite difficult emotionally, and sort of pride, so it was difficult to come to terms with that. But through reflection, and because I've had this placement opportunity, and I viewed very much everything that's happened as a learning opportunity, it's not actually my job and it's not reflecting me personally. And so because of that, I was able to come to terms and view this sent email as an unsent letter, which is something I've learned through a reflection textbook by Gilly Bolton and Russell Delderfield. And this textbook talks about how a writer, Krem, I think, was able to come to terms with some of our workplace relationships through this unsent letter metaphor, or even actually they is encouraged to write a letter and then not send it. But in my case, by viewing this sent email as an unsent letter, I was able to appreciate the time that I put into it for what it was. So I could this email that I sent wasn't for nothing. It was actually, it summarized what happened in the meeting. It collected my thoughts. I spent time thinking about how she would respond to what I'm saying. Because I put all that time and effort into it, I was able to view that process very much as something not wasted for time. So now in the future, when I'm working and I'm sending emails and I'm not getting replies that I wanted, or I'm not getting any replies at all, like this instance, I can view what happened as a constructive experience rather than viewing it negatively. However, talking about the team itself isn't going quite into the council structure. I've briefly gone over how the council operates, but the structure more significantly is, in particular, I should have mentioned that the winning party in the election gets to pick a cabinet between 6 and 9 members of the councillors, and so these members are then placed within the council structure. And in particular, there was one. I worked in this in Highways and Environmental Services, and so all of these smudged out areas are councillors. And I was actually luckily in one of my meetings, I was able to speak personally before. So there was a big meeting for local nature partnerships, which I'll go over in a second, and I was able to meet and talk to the councillor for the Highways and Environmental Services. Granted, in this instance, it wasn't so much a report meeting to the councillors, it was very much a support meeting from the councillors. However, before being able to explain this more clearly, it's useful if I explain what the Local Nature Partnership is and who the Local Nature Partnership Coordinator, who I worked with mostly throughout the placement, is. And so how it was explained to me is that there are 2 key performance indicators for the Local Nature Partnership. I should also mention that every county in Wales has it. So Powys has a Local Nature Partnership, Carmarthenshire also has a Local Nature Partnership, and so and all these other Welsh counties have local nature partnerships, and it is the Local Nature Partnerships coordinator's role to keep these up and running. It was explained to me in one of my final meetings actually that there's multiple different ways of doing this. So you can establish a sort of maybe monthly meeting, or you can establish a sort of newsletter. And the partnership that I was a part of was very much a work in progress, and that's because there wasn't anybody in the coordinator position for a substantial period of time when there should have been. And so what my role was to help this coordinator, and as I mentioned, there are 2 key performance indicators, and this is the terms of reference and the Nature Recovery Action Plan. Now the best way for me to describe what a Nature Recovery Action Plan is this. So here, each of these different areas need a Nature Recovery Action Plan. As you can see, actually quite a few have not got a Nature Recovery Action Plan, and this is the crux of the issue. So there's plenty of biodiversity action plans and plenty of other pieces of work that could even be viewed as a Nature Recovery Action Plan, but they're not. And so the key meeting I mentioned, where I met one of the councillors, where in fact actually 3 of the cabinet councillors were in this meeting, was for this Local Nature Partnership, and the Local Nature Partnership is then supposed to create this Nature Recovery Action Plan. And my contribution to this meeting was providing evidence and inspiration from, so this is not the total of councils, there's probably about 6-7 more that I did below and detailed what they did and how they did it. And so it's from this that I was able to learn that